The night I had to put my Nikos down, my horse Nikos, it was not an easy decision. This is another euthanasia story. He'd been sick. He was 25 years old. He was like a month away from being 25. He'd been sick for 3 months with EPM. If you're a horse person, you know what that is, the horror of that. It's equine protozoal myoencephalitis. It attacks the nervous system. It's a parasite that lives in the gut, has been there forever. It's not a new thing. But when it gets into the bloodstream, it can wreak havoc. And it did. And I've been caring for him. I was living with him at the time. In about 3 months, I guess. I won't go into the whole story of that. It was something. Caring for him, walking him. I slept on the couch for like weeks and weeks, fully clothed, so that I could get up in the middle of the night and walk him, because he had to be in a stall and he needed to walk. So and then he got better. He was on medication and he got better. And I didn't know if I'd ever be able to ride him, but I didn't care. This Nikos is my heart, my greatest teacher, human or animal. See, I'm probably going to start crying. He's been gone for 18 years. So that didn't matter to me. I just wanted him to be happy. He was in a herd and he was fine. And one day his trimmer, hoof trimmer, came and she did a foot or something. We're talking and she looks up at me with this horrified look on her face and she goes, "Pam, he's having trouble keeping his balance." I said, "Oh no, that can't be. He's fine. He's completely fine." And she said, "No, he's not fine." And she was right. He was leaning on her. And within days, he was ataxic again. It's like ataxia is like drunken walking. And I couldn't believe it. Put him on a different drug. There are still two drugs that you can use. Anyway, he didn't recover. He got worse and worse and worse. And one morning, I went out into the paddock. They lived outside with the access to the barn. When he was really, the first time he was sick, I kept him in a stall because he couldn't walk. He was like, I was afraid he was going to fall down. But at this point, he was standing. I had him by himself. We could see the other horses, but he was in a spot. And I got up in the morning and he was down. And that entire day, I sat with him. It was March. Fortunately, it wasn't frigid or raining, or it was cold, but it was decent. I fed him his breakfast and I fed him his lunch and I gave him treats and I called friends and we shared Reiki and prayers. And I just hoped that at one point he would get up. At one point, he was laying on one side. My vet came over and turned him. If a horse lays down too long, it crushes their organs. And so if they're laying on one side, that's not good. And so she turned him, she and her husband turned him for me. They were on their way somewhere. She said it didn't look good. And I was like, okay, let's just see what he wants to do. And by the end of the day, it's starting to get dark. And he started moving around like he wanted to get up. And I was like, okay. And I had a halter and lead rope on him. And I stood up and he got up and then he like ran forward and fell almost on me. A friend of mine was there and said, "Pam, move." And he fell. And then I knew it was time. So I'm doing a series here for you, how you know it's time. And, it wasn't that he was ready to leave. If I had asked him, "Do you want to leave?" he might have said no. But the fact is, horses aren't dogs or cats. If a dog or cat is down, you can still care for them. I had a friend with a paralyzed bunny for a year. She carried him around. She felt he was fine. He was happy. You can't do that with a horse. If they can't get up, it was horrible. In the wild, somebody would come eat them. So he couldn't just lay there. And then it started to rain. So I called a different vet because mine had gone out of town, and she came and she put him down, and I was devastated. 18 years later, I still am. Not with the euthanasia, but with losing him. Sorry, I should be able to tell this story. I've told it 100 times. So I sat with him for a while. The other horses came. There were 4 other horses who came to the fence and looked. They wanted to know what was going on. And I covered him with a blanket and put a big piece of quartz by his head and covered his head. I didn't want any animals to, well, first of all, to bother his body, but also he was full of poison. If something were to take a bite out of him, they could die. So I covered him and I went in the house and called some people who were friends of his to tell them what had happened. And a friend, his trimmer, who adored him, called me and said, Pam, go outside right now. Go outside. Nikos is flying around the paddock saying goodbye. And I said, okay. And I immediately went out. And this is one of those things with, she had taken my communication class. She also had a connection with Nikos. There were a few people in my life who were really his friends and not so much mine. They had this deep connection with him. And it's not that you see, it's that you feel it, you know that it's happening. So I didn't see a body flying, but I did. Does that make sense? And he was flying. He was free from this body that had been nothing but aggravation for 3 months. He was flying around, saying goodbye. He did like 3 laps around the paddock, and the horses were standing totally. They knew. And then he was gone, and I went back in the house. There's lots more post-mortem Nico stories, but that's one of my favorite stories about Nikos. He made sure he said goodbye to everybody. And then I knew it was okay. I mean, I knew that what I had to help him pass. He could not lay in the mud. He wasn't going to get up. He tried. I sat with him for about 8 hours and he tried and he ate. He was eating hay, he was eating food. He could not stand up. So there was no choice. He's bright-eyed, he's, healthy in every other way. So it was hard, but when he did that lap, that joyful lap, it was okay. So I will have other stories to share with you about client animals too, but I wanted to tell you Nikos' story and the night that my horse flew. I'm Pam Sorellis, wingedhorsehealing.com. I'll see you again soon. Thanks.